Hello, friends, and welcome to the show. I'd like to start this episode off with worst parents in the world. It's going to be my segment. I don't know if there's going to be any follow up segments, but it's definitely going to be the first one for today. So, for those parents who believe that no parent would ever, and here's two tweets from two horrible parents. Exactly, us too. I have a 7-year-old in isolation downstairs. He keeps messaging me on Facebook. Mommy, I'm lonely. My 5-year-old wrote in his journal entry today that he is sad because his brother isn't here. I set up a baby monitor to let 8-year-old ask for things, 5-year-old using it to talk to 8-year-old. Jumping over. And so the 14-day isolation begins. Nothing has broken my heart like the sound of my 10-year-old crying while I sit on the other side of the door and tell him 14 days will go quickly, hoping phone calls or hoping PH calls so we can get some advice and answers. What is going on with these abusive parents? I know if I were to lock my kid in a closet for 2 weeks, I would probably get sent to jail for child abuse. Severe isolation for a 5, 8, 10-year-old is just emotionally crushing and mentally devastating. These parents are doing nothing less than abusing their child. There's a reason why their children are crying, begging for basically human interaction, because as social creatures, like I said in a previous episode, adults can deal with severe isolation for weeks to months at a time before they crack. Little kids can barely go an hour. That's why they say you shouldn't put your kid in timeout for basically longer than they are old, right? So if you have a 5-year-old, you really shouldn't put your kid in timeout for more than 5 minutes. If you have a 10-year-old, you really shouldn't put your kid in timeout for more than, say, 10 minutes to an hour, because they are not mentally capable of dealing with that loneliness. And it causes issues in their development. But that's going to be it. I don't like talking about horrible parents because honestly, it makes me kind of depressed, cuts a little too deep for me. Let's jump over to Axios. Scoop: Biden administration call on Putin pipeline provokes GOP anger. A briefing between the State Department and congressional staff over Vladimir Putin's Russia-Germany gas pipeline got tense this week, with Biden officials deflecting questions about why they hadn't moved faster and more aggressively with sanctions to stop its completion. The Biden officials also denied negotiating with the Germans over a potential side deal to allow the pipeline to be finished. Why it matters. As we reported earlier this week, some allies are worried that Biden is shaky on Putin's Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and the fight is a significant test of whether the new president's tough rhetoric against Russia will be matched by action. It won't. This is me adding this. His son is on the take. He is on the take. If you believe the emails, if you believe that Joe Biden is the big guy and receives 10% of what his son receives, if his son is on the take of government officials from Russia, he is also on the take from government officials from Russia. So why would it be in his best interest to see the completion of the pipeline? Or why would it be in his best interest to block that action? It doesn't make any sense. Don't trust a politician who makes money because they're in office. Trust a politician who loses money that's in office. Not saying that you should always trust what Donald Trump told you or what he did, but it is now widely reported that Trump lost a significant portion of his net wealth while he was president. So Trump lost billions of dollars while president of the United States. Biden has made millions and millions and millions of dollars while serving in public office and is now in the highest office in the land. How much more net worth do you think he's going to get? The Obamas are now nearly going to be billionaires in the next few years. Do you trust that what they did in 8 years in office was on the most up and up? If they're getting $100 million contracts from Spotify to throw up a couple podcasts here and there, what did they do to receive that type of money? It's probably corruption, if I were to ask. Russia opponents, including top officials in the Ukrainian and Polish governments, worry that Biden doesn't want to antagonize Angela Merkel and won't inflict serious costs on the Germans. And members of Congress, both Republican and Democrats, were underwhelmed by a report that Biden's State Department recently sent to Congress, which only targeted one Russian ship for sanctions. The Trump administration had already sanctioned that ship, the Fortuna. behind the scenes. The first call between senior State Department officials and Republican and Democrat national security staffers from the House and Senate happened on Tuesday. The Tuesday call was classified and took place from a secure room. A source on the call and two other sources briefed on that conversation said that the questioning focused on why the Biden administration hadn't targeted a larger number of ships for sanctions, given the aides argued that maritime tracking clearly shows a number of additional ships are working on the pipeline. The call continued for around half an hour until the line suddenly fell dead from the State Department's end. While some Republicans on the call initially thought they'd been hung up on, the State Department said it was a technical issue. I'm sure it was. They were probably hung up on. That's the thing. So either the government is evil or it is incompetent. Do you believe that the government is incapable of making a phone call, or do you believe that, okay, we're tired of answering these questions, so we're just going to hang up now and just say it's a technical issue? I've said multiple times, I've said it to bosses in the past. Oh man, I'm sorry. The phone line just died. I'm sorry I didn't talk to you for 3 hours. Then on Thursday at 2 p.m., the State Department officials regrouped for a second briefing call, this time non-classified with senior staff from the House and Senate offices. This call was more contentious, according to three sources who participated. Rising hostility was coming from Republican officials who weren't satisfied with the responses. The Biden officials seemed to be trying to politely avoid conflict. At one point during the call, a Republican Senate staffer asked the Biden officials why they hadn't sanctioned Nord Stream 2 AG, the company in charge of building the pipeline. The State Department officials responded that they weren't going to discuss specific entities and that they were still investigating the facts and compiling the evidence. We're talking about the company that owns Nord Stream 2, the Republican official said sharply, according to three sources on the call. I'm on their webpage right now, and they identify themselves as the company that's in charge of the planning, construction, and operation of the pipeline. You have determined that the sanctionable activity was occurring related to the pipeline. What is the sort of information that you would need to get to confirm for yourself that the company that runs the operation that you just sanctioned is engaged in sanctionable activity? So it's not just that, but also they bring up in this article. Here's the big picture. The pipeline construction halted during the Trump administration after Congress mandated sanctions in a 2019 bill, and top Trump officials, including Mike Pompeo, issued aggressive threats. But the Russians resumed major construction of the Nord Stream 2 after Biden took office. The pipeline is more than 90% complete and could be finished by the summer without major intervention to stop it. So big picture, right? So the big picture is Trump aggressively sanctioned Russia. Trump basically saber rattled to Russia, basically saying, knock it off. You're doing things you're not supposed to be doing, so we are basically economically punishing you. And so what happens when Joe Biden takes office? Russia goes, oh, it's okay. Joe Biden is in our pocket, so we're going to keep constructing because we know the Joe Biden administration isn't going to do anything, because if they attempt to do anything, we will imprison their son in some gulag in Siberia. Because that's what happens. You take the payoff and you look the other way. If you don't look the other way, you will find yourself rotting someplace where it's negative 40 degrees as you lose your freaking toes because it's so cold outside. And that's exactly what's happening. Russia knows Biden won't do anything, so they're just basically spitting in America's face. People say Trump was soft on Russia. What's softer on Russia than literally watching them basically? I don't want to say anything that would get me in trouble, but when you're watching Russia spit in your face, or basically you're watching Russia basically smack your children, and you're too impotent to do anything about it, because you know if you stand up to him, he's going to let the world know that your family is on the take. Imagine those mob movies where those politicians, they're on the take, and then the mob members like slap them on the back of the head, and they know they can't do anything because those mob members will basically say, hey, remember that time I gave you a $10,000 check for your campaign? Hey, remember that time I helped you out with that redecoration of your home? Remember that time I got you that brand new Mercedes Benz? Well, that's exactly what's going on. Or at least it appears to be that way. And it is quite disturbing that the now president of the United States appears to be on the take. And not only does he appear to be on the take, he is now soft with a geopolitical opponent who basically just laughs in our face now, because they know they must have something on Joe Biden. If Hunter Biden has received millions of dollars from the Russians, What do they have on Hunter and or Joe Biden? That's what I have to ask. Jumping over to Newsbusters, barely trying. CNN finally covers Cuomo claims, but gives it 96 seconds in 2 days. After over 24 hours of silence, CNN decided to acknowledge on Thursday Lindsey Boylan's sexual harassment claims against primetime host Chris Cuomo's brother and Governor Andrew Cuomo and the latest blows in the state nursing home scandal, but only tossed scraps to the viewers that they treated like small brain proles with only 96 seconds over 2 news briefs. Worse yet, neither brief came on any of CNN's evenings or primetime shows. MSNBC entered their silence with a combined 9 minutes and 45 seconds, but it only came from 3 shows, and like CNN, none came from primetime. Boylan published her Medium post Wednesday morning and then tweeted it out at 10:10 a.m. Eastern, but it wasn't until 12:49 Eastern Time Thursday when Inside Politics host John King broke the ice with a 39-second brief. King followed suit on CNN.com article from an hour earlier when he chose to frame it based on denials from Cuomo and his inner circle and not what Boylan had alleged. The other CNN mention came exactly 4 hours later on the lead, with host Jake Tapper tying Boylan's Medium post to Cuomo's coronavirus scandals, the later of which he dared to call a cover-up. Here, basically there's a quote. So, it's amazing, right? So, when not Joe Biden, but when Donald Trump was accused of anything, it was wall-to-wall coverage for days at a time. So now you have a governor in a state who's accused of, or basically has self-admitted to suppressing evidence from federal investigators because they felt like they were going to get in trouble. Basically, they were acting like 5-year-olds. They were hiding evidence of breaking the vase. That way they wouldn't get in trouble. But mommy and daddy know that the vase is broken because it's not there. They just want to find out where the vase is. But the little kid goes, "What vase? What are you talking about? I have no idea what you're talking. There was never a vase there, mommy. There was never a vase. There was never a vase there, daddy. What's going on here?" Right? And the parents go, Hey, look, little Andrew. I know there was a vase there. I know something is up. Please tell us what's going on." And he keeps hiding evidence. So by hiding evidence, that is the crime. So possibly his policies wouldn't have been criminal, but the fact that he was hiding the consequences of those policies is criminal. Because when an investigation needs to come in and say, hey, we need to basically construct a federal policy of what's going on, especially regarding nursing homes, because we feel like that's a hotspot. We feel if COVID gets into a nursing home, that's going to be an issue. Basically, he starts hiding the evidence because he doesn't want to appear to be as incompetent as he actually is. And therein lies the rub. Is he going to be held accountable for his actions regarding nursing home scandals? And now, as every Democrat before him, or before this latest event involving a Democrat, no Democrats seem to be held accountable when they're sexually harassing a woman, unless they are Harvey Weinstein. Apparently, that's the last thing I can remember. Unless you're basically grooming underage men, I haven't heard of any Democrats basically getting in trouble unless it's with law enforcement. But socially affected, socially outcasted from their inner circles, as long as they don't go to jail. So Harvey Weinstein went to prison, and that's why he was kicked out of those inner circles. You had the Clintons go, "Oh, thank you, Harvey Weinstein, for all you do." You had a bunch of famous people who all know that Harvey Weinstein was a horrible individual, and basically always thank him because they knew he was a power player. And until the point to where the government got wise and the government threw him in jail, everybody was on his side because they knew it was better to be on his side than not on it. So now you see these women come out against Andrew Cuomo, basically saying he sexually harassed me. You have another woman say he kissed me, which is sexual assault. If he basically approached her, grabbed her, kissed her on the lips, that is sexual assault. Maybe it's not as violent a sexual assault as it could be, but it's still sexual assault because he unwittingly touched her in a sexual manner. So that's going to be it for now. I'm going to post a couple more videos throughout the day today. Until then, I'll see you all later. Have a good one. Later, friends. Bye.